Welcome to Community Chats, bringing you stories and insights from the heart of Community Living Toronto, a non-profit organization that proudly supports people with intellectual disabilities and their families. We will focus on stories of belonging and inclusion and topics of interest from communities across Ontario and the world. From uplifting moments to breaking barriers, from innovative policies to ideas from leading thinkers, we continue to advocate for inclusive communities and support the rights and choices of people with an intellectual disability.
Hi everyone, I'm Brad Saunders, CEO at Community Living Toronto, and welcome to our Community Chats podcast. Really glad that you've decided to join our conversation today. Today we have a conversation with Mike Tasevski, who's Logan's dad. Mike shares his journey from a job as an executive chef at a really cool Toronto restaurant to his path to becoming an advertising executive. Talks about how their family has evolved over the years and built a life with their daughter Logan, who lives with an intellectual disability. Logan's life is full of a lot of activity, including living more independently, having a job, and being very involved in a lot of activities in her community. Mike is a member of Community Living Toronto's Lights Board and has also become a strong advocate for the sector, believing that people that are care providers in Ontario need to be well supported, need to be paid a living wage, and Mike has certainly stood behind our organization in advocating for those things as well. Mike has become a great supporter of Community Living Toronto, and we're glad to have this conversation with him today. With now, I bring you my conversation with Mike.
Mike, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
No worries.
And now you're relatively new to the Community Living Toronto family in the last year or so, maybe a little bit less, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your family. I've got to know you a little bit in the last little bit, and we've become fast friends, and share a little bit about yourself. And
yeah, definitely. But one thing I do have
story.
to say, thank you for the welcoming Community Living's giving me and giving me the opportunity to be part of the board and help out in many ways. We've been part of Community Living as a family for a long period of time. My wife was the one that had the reins on doing everything for Logan, and now it's shifted. I'm getting heavily involved. She's had, an up and down journey, and we'll talk about that, with overall trying to navigate for Logan's life. But my journey is very unique. I've been in the business community for many years, lived in New York for a number of years, lived in Phoenix for a number of years, worked with companies that were very unique. I actually started my career as a chef. So I was an executive chef for many years at Movenpick, which taught me a lot of skills from knowing how to run a business. I opened my own restaurant and worked for Oliver Bonacini, opened Jump with Michael Bonacini, catered to almost every tower in the city, worked with so many celebrities. I was actually the executive chef that opened the Sky Dome and the Toronto International Film Festival. So the first festival here. And then when Logan was born, I couldn't stay in that field. It was just too hard, working weekends and nights. And there were some days I was working.
When was Logan born, Mike?
Logan was born in 92. So, okay. She was 92 and the first year of her life, Brad, we really didn't know anything was wrong with Logan. And it happened after the first year. But being in that industry, you just can't do it. You can't support the family. So I morphed into the business world due to the fact that I had so many skills from the restaurant community. I went into sales and developing loyalty programs and more about marketing and partnerships. And really, I've mentored so many people, and they've looked at my career and they've said, how could you go from an executive chef to a vice president of Fortune 500 companies? You know how I did it?
It's a fair question.
Yeah, you know what? They're good questions. But I did it through support with my family. And in many occasions, I was quite afraid of what I was doing. But I persevered, moved on, and kept on learning. And I think anyone can learn anything if they put their mind to it.
Yeah.
And just be thoughtful and collaborative and work with people and understand what they're doing first so you can learn their skills moving forward.
Great. So my daughter, who's 19, played softball when she was younger, and actually Heather Dunn, who's coming up next, our daughters played in a few tournaments together over the years. And one day, I'm going to say 10 years ago, I posted this Facebook post that said, softball league fees $300. softball bat, $250. Watching your daughter hit her first triple, priceless.
Love it.
Why would that resonate with you?
I had a lot to do with the priceless program with MasterCard. And like I said, I actually pinch myself sometimes when, some of the things I've worked on, some of the people that I've met. The MasterCard Priceless program is one of the best programs in the world I've ever thought. It's a platform that connects people together and creates moments. In our lives today, we have unique moments and we cherish them. They're no different. I had an opportunity to work with celebrities like Justin Timberlake, the Carrie Underwoods, the football players, baseball players. Like I work with everyone. Yeah, I mean, and when I looked at priceless, life is about priceless moments in our professional and personal lives. So a lot of that taught me a lot of lessons, in my current life to really say cherish those moments, cherish those simple moments as well, because I think we take things for granted. And I think when you have a, special needs child, you don't take the little things for granted because to them, it means something more than we're used to. We know how to ride the TTC or go do simple things. They don't. But when they take those moments on,
right,
and they learn those skills. That's a moment for them that's priceless. I remember when Logan got her job just recently.
Mm-hmm.
We got a call from Little E Cafe, which is in Toronto, and the manager was on the phone.
Remind people where Little E is.
So yeah, Little E is a special place in Toronto, Yonge and St. Clair. It's a cafe that only has special needs adults working in there, and it's such a warm feeling when you go in there and you see what they're trying to achieve as individuals. It breaks your heart sometimes, but it's also fulfilling at the same time. We were walking out of Home Hardware, I think it was Home Depot, and we get a call from Logan's manager at Little E, and Logan was on the phone. We got news for you. They did a pop-up at Scotiabank, and Logan did such a great job there. And they liked what she did that they offered her a permanent position that's part-time, which was phenomenal. It's hard to get a job for these individuals.
Yeah.
So we're walking, both my wife and I, and we get this call and they said, we've got news for you. And the news was that Logan's been hired for a permanent role. And I tell you, the tears in both my wife and our eyes was just priceless. It was a priceless moment. And those small achievements or those small phone calls or those connections are really what life's about. It's those moments that really connect people.
Yeah. So Logan was born in 1992.
Yes.
And just recently she's gotten a job, and there's a lot in between. Can you talk to us about what that journey was like for you and her and your family?
It wasn't easy. And I think a lot of families go through ebbs and flows during the journey of a child. First year of her life, she wasn't really bonding with us. And, my mother-in-law noticed the fact that, she wasn't, and her eye was shifting quite a bit. And we really didn't think of it much. But then once we brought her to an ophthalmologist and then went through all the journey of that journey was a tough one because we then ended up at Sick Kids. It was more than just an eye shifting. It was neurological. It was, pale optic nerves. She was born considered legally blind. So, after a year of, trying to find ways of bonding with her, we knew why she wasn't. And that changed our whole life. Logan's 32. She'll be turning 33 next month. And Kathy has been really, I can't say enough about what my wife has done to really build Logan as a person. She did it more than I did. Due to the fact that I worked so much and I was always traveling and didn't have the time, but she lifted every stone, tried to find and recover anything that Logan could do during that journey, because when they were special needs, her learning abilities are short, her retention of information, all these things, she walked with a gait. And I think many families go through what we did. There were ebbs and flows and pressure on your family as well. So the journey was good and bad. And it's okay to say that it's good and bad because those are the bumps that you're going to go through as a family. But eventually you get to a point where I look at Logan today, couldn't be more proud of what she's achieved as an individual, but it's done, as a family. And, you can't do this without people around you and surrounding you with the right people around you.
Yeah. Are there any sort of significant moments that stand out for you around in Logan's journey and your family, like, or anything that jumps out as being particularly significant that
Yeah,
influenced you?
yeah. I think the most significant thing was just most recently. Yeah, I mean that she moved out on her own. Yeah, I mean so. Yeah, I
Got
mean
a
so
job, moved out.
new
That's
job, moved out
a
all in
lot.
a year, and like what a feeling. I
Well,
mean
tell us about that. So she's moved out.
yeah, she's
She lived
moved
at
out.
home. Yeah.
But once again, as a father, it was always challenging for me. My wife, she was, like I said, just put her out there, let her do it. Like, for example, the TTC, the simple thing. I didn't want her to take the TTC. So I look at her today, she rides it better than anyone that I know, or even better than me. So,
Right.
but that's that fear factor. But my wife and I came to a point where we said that we've got to find something for Logan because we're in our 60s and we want to make sure that she's more independent and not relying on our son. So let me touch back. So in my family, I have a son, very successful son, very proud of what him and his wife have done. I'm a grandfather. They have 2 kids. He's a lawyer. She's a lawyer. They've great, successful family. Can't make me any more proud than I am today. But I don't want to put the burden on them to support Logan. So my wife and I were thinking ahead. We've got to get her moved out. Moved out also for the reason that my wife and I need to be alone. We needed independence for ourselves too. People forget that. So she moved out last year. She got a permanent job. I think that's what it was, Brad. And that wasn't an easy task either, because I think some of people have heard me speak during these past couple of weeks on broadcasts that Logan was on a list for 14 years waiting to find a home, and that's hard. But we took means in our own hands and started sourcing different information, different agencies, and Lights came about. And Lights
Right.
is just a phenomenal organization that I'm a board member then and helping to grow that program with the support of community living. Gave Logan the opportunity to move out and also be funded at the same time. Because once again, a lot of these people, live their lives on ODSP, and we know, as we all know on this phone call as families, that
Yeah.
the ODSP needs to be looked at. Someone can't live on $1,300 a year and support themselves with housing, food, just about everything. So that's probably the highlight. Honestly, it happened at a later part in our year.
Yeah, no, it's a great point too. And just to circle back to the point around ODSP, the I think the rate now it always sort of hovers at a little less than the rate of poverty
It
in the
does.
city.
Yeah.
And it's $1,300 a month or so. And now the government a couple of years ago connected the rate of ODSP to the rate of inflation, the same way that they did with the minimum wage, which was a really good initiative that the ministry, Ford's government did. But it still doesn't change the fact that it's 50% of really what you need to live at the poverty line in the city. So it does put people who are on ODSP at real risk of homelessness, of food insecurity, of not being able to maintain and be in safe spaces.
And that's the hard part that we see as a parent of a child with disabilities, is that we have to think further ahead. But I think the thinking needs to start earlier than later. And I look at, lifting the hood with what community living's done over these years. I'm proud of what you guys have done, but I know you're underfunded and you need funding. The government needs to get involved with this sector, even more so, because I think early intervention is the biggest thing. So I think when you look at a family with a special needs individual is that they need to start thinking about this at 40, not at 60. We were thinking through the whole journey at an earlier stage where we were uncovering, where can Logan participate in this program? Is there a special needs bowling club? Is there a drama club? Where can she socialize with people? Because one of the things that is always top on our mind is loneliness. I just heard most recently, 50% of Canadians are lonely. And in our community, it's even worse because it's hard for them to keep a friend and find a friend and socialize, because parents deal with their kids differently, because some don't want them to take TTC, some don't want them to go out. But I think community living needs to get additional support to talk to families earlier, to provide that intervention, to provide that critical path of growth for that individual, housing, food, economy, whatever it is, Brad, that's what I'm looking at, looking inside to community living.
Yeah, I completely agree. And those are things that are important to us as well. In terms of Logan's journey, you talked about loneliness and using, you sort of gone through a list of important things that are important for people for a good quality of life.
Yeah.
What were some of the things, practical things that you did with Logan and that she did for herself around making sure that she had friends and was connected to community, and talk a little bit about how you and she and your family worked through that.
Yeah, I look at it it's having a purpose. I think that's what it is. Give me an example. We were driving home yesterday and Logan said, wow, I'm going to be really busy this week. I got to work today. I got 2 extra shifts on Tuesday and Wednesday. We got to go fix my passport. I got to get this done on Thursday. I'm going to drama. It's finding programs and fitting that individual in there, because you almost have to push them because sometimes they don't want to do it. I.e., for example, Logan goes to special needs bowling at Parkway Plaza on Saturdays. And what a remarkable place to kind of connect with like-minded individuals. And hopefully she gets friendships there. So what Kathy's done and is over the years is really uncovered different programs through your sources, through different sources. Some have worked, some haven't. We made sure that she was somewhat self-sufficient to go to the grocery store, learn a little bit more about money. Just the simple things that we take for granted is what we taught Logan over the years. And I look at Logan from when she was 18 to now she's going to be 33. In those years, she learned a ton. So when you look at Logan, very normal, very high functioning, but there's a lot of deficiencies. But we kept on pushing. And the example of the TTC was the hardest for me, but we did it. Kathy was very persistent. It's those simple things that we take for granted that make a difference for them.
Right. So that's excellent. You talked also around the importance for you and your wife around planning with Logan for her future, so that your son and his wife didn't feel an obligation to be a caregiver, care provider for Logan. And there's an organization called Siblings Canada that does a lot of work in this area around, what are the expectations that parents can have of other siblings of people with a disability, and where those lines are. How did you navigate those waters early on, or what were the conversations like? What would you say to other families who are thinking about that? How do you start those conversations off?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest questions people ask themselves as they age. You cannot be overprotective of your child. Treat them normally, in the sense that I understand they have disabilities, but you've got to remember, in order for them to be self-sufficient, you've got to break down some of those boundaries of fear and give them the opportunity to achieve. So with Logan and ourselves, it's not only the benefit of the child, it's also the benefit of the mother and father, because you get to a point where you need some independence for yourself and creating a life for yourself. Now, I look at those discussions, they're not easy, but over time, if you're staying persistent and you're having that dialogue, that's saying to Logan that, you're going to have to move out sooner or later because you've got to build that independence, having those conversations earlier than later. And we've met families that have waited quite long in their late 60s, and they've got a 50-year-old or a 55-year-old that's still with them. You're in a tough situation right then, because you haven't reacted early enough to have those tough conversations of, as a family unit, not just with Logan, as your entire family unit. Because we've done this with our entire family being involved, even with Michael, our son. We've talked about the fact that, we don't want to put the burden on you. We want to make sure Logan's self-sufficient. Certainly she'll need a little bit of support, but tough dialogue, but you've got to have it as a family unit.
And that piece you touched on, I think that's something a parent goes through around, accepting a degree of risk to give your child. There's a sort of dignity that comes with risk, right?
There is.
You talk about Logan using the TTC. Again, my kids are 19 and 17.
Yeah.
And when they were, I would say, get on the GO train, go downtown, take the sun. But it's nervous there, right? Because sometimes the TTC is a risky place, or you can be in uncomfortable situations. You can get lost.
She has gotten lost. I'll give you a perfect example. She's out in Ronsonsville, and the subway stopped, and she didn't realize she was the only one on the platform. This was about a month and a half ago. And she said, Dad, the subway's not coming. I said, well, Logan, the subway may be turned off there. Oh, I don't. And she was crying, and I had to walk her up to the TTC booth upstairs, and wasn't happy how the TTC handled it. And that's a whole different discussion. But it's those simple things. But she learns a skill there where she said, I should have probably asked a question. So she was in a tough situation. She should have thought, go upstairs, ask the question, and then call us and then take the Uber. But she didn't. But she learned a lesson there. Those are the tough ones that you learn, and now she'll remember in the future.
Yeah.
But as a family of a special needs child, you're saying, oh man, is someone going to take advantage of her? Is she going to be stuck in that situation? Those are those fearful moments, Brad. But
no, and I can relate where your instinct is sort of, don't move. I'll be there. And
but how am I going to get, and we know the traffic in Toronto would probably take me 2 hours. I said, Logan, we're going to have to walk through this together. And we did walk through it together. And what a skill she learned there, because she learned a simple skill to make sure she had to be proactive in the future, to look at her environment, her surroundings, and question what's going on, and then react.
Yeah, well, that's actually that you've been able to build up that relationship and that trust and that comfort with that discomfort of the risk that could be there, right?
Don't get me wrong, Brad. It's still hard to this day, because I'm saying, what's she going to do up in Ronsonsville, up on Queen of Ronsonsville? You know, I mean, what could happen? Yeah, I mean, because you're always
exactly,
careful, right?
Exactly. Now you've generously volunteered to be on the Lights board. Yes. And you're bringing your expertise and background in marketing to that group, so that much appreciated.
Thank you.
You've also supported the sector with some of our work that we're doing around the Waiting to Belong campaign.
Yes.
You've got a background in marketing, as you talked about, and you've actually gone on a couple of media events where you and Logan have been interviewed on some of the morning shows and all that. Yes, two things. Can you tell us, well, what that experience was like for you and Logan, the media piece, and then what is Waiting to Belong, and what are we trying to get at there? What's your, what would you say there?
Yeah, two good questions. The experience was phenomenal. I remember sitting, because I've done a lot of media events over my career. This was the first one for Logan. First one was City TV, actually. And so we're sitting in a green room, and she didn't know the environment and ready to go get mic'd up and everything. And you know what? What an experience for her. Like she just soaked it up. And the interview was just phenomenal. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but on the call here, but she did a remarkable job. She held her own. She talked about her own journey. I didn't talk about it. She described everything.
Yeah.
So when I saw what she did, and our whole family got around it, and everyone was watching, and proud moment for us. And you know, what great experience for her to talk about herself in front of a camera in the world. And we need more of that. We need more spokespeople like Logan out there to really talk about who they are as individuals, so people understand that there's a community out there that's almost forgotten to us, is the way we feel. And so it's out there, and that the campaign that's out there right now, we're proud of what you're doing. Belonging is probably one of the biggest things for these people, is just being part of a community, being part of getting up in the morning and going to work, just like my wife and I would do, just like any other normal thing. And that's what it's all about, making sure that they're just treated like everyone else. I know when Logan was born and we found out her deficiencies, we didn't treat her any differently. We treated her just like the other grandkids that we threw out there. She would get the bumps and bruises, and that's belonging. That's not changing the environment. You're adapting the environment, and she's socializing in that environment as a normal individual.
Has there been, you've been through a lot, and you and your wife have been thoughtful around where you want to see things go for your family and for Logan.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for, professionals, and professionals could be, docs that you might have interacted with, or you've had experience with sick kids, or, people that work with community living who are direct support staff, or people like myself. What advice or suggestions would you have for us around how we can do things better? First part, and then to other parents, do you have any thoughts that you'd share around what kept you going when you were
I think the biggest thing I say to a lot of people is open dialogue. You're going to succeed through open dialogue, and don't be fearful of saying anything that you think someone may construe differently. I.e., for example, Chris Beasley made a great point during one of the interviews. He said a lot of parents would like to see their disabled child pass away before they do.
Yeah.
That's a powerful statement. You know why? It's because of the care. That's an open statement out there that people think, why would someone say that? It's reality. It's just being open, and it's not fearful. It's just saying the right thing, what's on your mind, because you live in a different environment when you manage or live with someone with special needs, because you're dealing with so many different things. So my advice is to any family, any organization, is open dialogue and early intervention and early discussions. Don't wait for something to come to you, because it will not come in this sector. You have to lift those rocks, look under those rocks, find something. If you don't find something, move on to the next. As it relates to your organization, it's really, for me, lifting the hood, and what I've seen, what you manage and what Chris and the entire community living group manages, is funding, the lack of it. I want to see the government more involved in this sector, to start giving back through proper funding. Understanding the journey of families is the most important thing, because people look at Logan, they look at Kathy and I and my entire family. They're okay because Logan can walk, she's normal,
Right.
But we're not. Lift our hood, and it's a completely different environment. People need to understand what we live in every day. So
Right.
those are probably what I would bring forward for my opinion on what needs to happen.
Okay. That's excellent. And you raise a good point. There's a bit of a myth with government funding or funding from the ministry. And that is that, every year your budgets, you get a couple of percent more and you manage cost of living. And that's an absolute myth. We do not get automatic increases from our funder. And, last year we had a Five to Survive campaign and had really increases in 25, 30 years. Or we'd had increases totaling, I forget what the number was, say 7 or 9%, whereas cost of living, inflation had gone up 60%. So those gaps are made up somehow. And at some point, if we want to have good disability services, we're the envy of many parts of the world. And we don't want to see those infrastructure, the social care infrastructure crumble, because we're not willing to keep putting, step increases around funding every year.
Yeah. And being part of your journey now, which I'm thrilled to be part of the community living journey and the Lights journey, it's giving me a sense of pride. It's actually probably been my best job I've ever had, more than any corporate role I would have held, more than any other role throughout my career. I think giving back to a community that needs help is so fulfilling in right now in my journey in life. And I plan to have a large voice. I do talk a lot. I am very open, as you can see, and I won't stop. The one thing I have always said to teams that I've managed: if you've got a question, put it on the table, because I want to hear it, because it means something to you. That's how I live and make sure I manage my life moving forward. If I've got questions, I'm going to ask the hard questions. I'm going to push those buttons to try to influence change. So you're going to get that from me. And when I speak to families, I'm open with my discussions with the families, as open as I just was right now with you guys.
Great, thank you. I'm going to wrap up, and we end up with the same question for everybody. We put a lot of emphasis on belonging and community and the neighborhoods that we're in across the city, and that, and you've touched on that, on the importance of that. What does belonging mean to you?
Belonging means to me that you're loved by someone. It means that you've got a support mechanism behind you to support you for the future. We all need that as individuals, whether you're a special needs adult or an individual. And for me, it's belonging to a community of people that can support you for the future. And that's what it is. You need support, you need open dialogue, you need friendship, you need all the things that are common in life, but it has to happen all the time. And I reflect back on the fact that loneliness is probably the worst thing in life. And as you age, and then you're not around to support these individuals, it weighs heavy on your mind. So it's just, the care and love that we need to give each other from a community perspective.
Yeah. Excellent. Great answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mike, thanks for doing this discussion with us.
You're welcome.
Sharing your thoughts, and I really appreciate you have certainly dove in and rolled up your sleeves and are getting things done. You've kind of inspired us. Well, not kind of, you have inspired us.
Thank you.
Because one of the things working with organizations like ours, we rely so much on volunteers and volunteer leadership. And when people come in and are just enthused and see value in what you're doing, it really does go a long way for those of us in the organization and across the organization. So thank you for that. You've really brought that. That's been a gift to us from you. So thank you so much for doing that.
No worries. Thank you. And thank you for having me today. And for the families on the phone, I'm always open to talk to any family. I do it quite often. So feel free, to reach out to me if you ever want to chat.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you again.
Logan's story is a great example of what people can achieve when they put their minds to it. Mike and his family have been really supportive of Logan and what she wanted to do with her future. We can each learn from each other. And as Mike mentioned, if you want to learn more about how they developed a plan for their daughter, he would be happy to chat with you, as would any of our Lights facilitators or other staff at Community Living Toronto. If you're curious about something, don't hesitate to reach out. We're always happy to share. Thanks for joining our Community Chats podcast. And remember, we release a new episode on the 15th and 30th of each month, so don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.
Don't forget to join us next time as we unpack the power of community through collaborative initiatives and shared experiences. Available on Buzzsprout, Spotify, Audible, and YouTube. Follow us on social media at CL Toronto. Let's chat, share, and spread those good vibes together. We hope these discussions will inspire you and give new ideas to add your voice to our mission of making our communities and neighborhoods inclusive and welcoming.